I'm Stuart Campbell, I'm the Art Director on F1 2018 and I'm here at Silverstone today to talk to you about the big visual improvements in the 2018 game. The first thing I looked at when I joined the project was where F1 2017 was visually and where we could make the biggest visual wins in the time frame that we have. And the biggest win for me this year has definitely been the atmospheric system. Last year we only had a very simple height fog, but this year we've got a full atmospheric system that gives a greater sense of depth in the scene, and it makes for some really stunning vistas on some of the new tracks like Hockenheim and Paul Ricard, and also on some of the tracks like Spa and Austria where you've got extensive views. The atmospherics really helps connect the sky and the ground together, and it really makes a much more cohesive image. So the sky in our game can take up 30 to 50% of the frame, so we need to spend our budget on that. It's a huge bit of real estate. So even on a clear day, we wanted to make sure that the sky was never boring. We always have some interest, whether that's high-level cloud or some jet trails. There's always a little bit of detail, a little bit of interest there for you. The new cloud tech makes our clouds far more believable. We've got proper response to light direction now, proper density to the clouds, and you've got a much better sense of direction, where the sun is and where the opposite side of the sun is and how the light reacts from one side of the sky to the other. We use something called image-based lighting, so everything that comes from the sky and clouds gets fed back onto the track lighting, so any improvements we make to sky and clouds is felt right across the game as a whole, and it makes a massive difference to the fidelity of the tracks. In terms of the weather and how the new cloud system affects that, the cloud shapes themselves are far more believable. They sit much better out onto the horizon, but they also have much more contrast and much more response to light. So when wet weather rolls in, you get this real angry storm feeling in the sky, and when it rolls away, you get some lovely clear views with high-level cloud and contrails and things in the background. Another one of the big features on the track are the trees. Some of the tracks have a lot of trees, but again, the trees sit right in that central band where your vision is focused most. So it's important to get the trees right. The 2017 game was a little bit flat in the trees, so we've added a lot more form. We've got some new shaders on the trees, and as they roll off into the distance, we've got far more light response, even into our background low-level trees. All of this makes for far more interesting vistas again, and in combination with the work on the atmospherics in the sky, all of that creates a much more consistent package. So the environment art team this year have spent a lot of time really updating the race corridor. That's everything from the fences and the barriers, the armcos, to the track materials themselves. The game uses something called physically based rendering, and that allows us to create materials that are very believable. You should be able to basically look at any material in the game and be able to tell how that feels just by looking at it. Whether it's tarmac, glass, metal, wood, whatever it is, the surface response should be correct to what you see in real life. One of the most iconic things for me about F1 as a sport is seeing that heat haze on the start straight, the heat rising from the track, from the engine exhausts, and then the mirage effect that you see reflecting in the track. We've added a full heat haze and mirage system to our visual effects for this year, and it makes a huge difference in the replay cameras and on track when you're racing. Another one of the new visual effects features is the dust effects off the racing line. So you'll find that when a car travels just off the centre line, there's a lot of dust sits on the track. The cars will now release that dust into the air, so you'll get a visual feedback when you're actually not on the most accurate line that you should be. That dust will disperse as the race goes on, as it naturally leaves the track. And if the rain comes on, obviously it neutralises the dust as well. Our key visual goals with F1 is always to make it as authentic and realistic as we possibly can, and the cars are a huge feature of the sport. Our vehicle artists go to great lengths to scan the cars in extreme detail. They then take this scan data back and they use it as a reference check when they're modelling vehicles. They can check every single little detail out and make sure everything's in the right place, from a bolt to a screw, everything's accurately represented. Character rendering is one of the biggest things we wanted to tackle this year, so we wanted to get the quality really up in this area. We've got a brand new character skin shader and brand new hair rendering as well. The skin itself interacts with light in a very specific way. We've got something called subsurface scattering that depicts how the light moves through the likes of your ears and the edges of your skin, and we've recreated all of that in our shader. The characters in the game all come from 3D scan. Whether it's the drivers in the game or whether it's our key characters like the agent or our new reporter character. The improvements to the game lighting in combination with the character shader have had a huge impact on making our characters far more lifelike than they've ever been, and I think everyone will really be pleased when they see the results. Our previous titles all had very simple facial animations, but this year we've added a new morph-based animation system, and what this does is it accurately recreates all the muscles inside your face and creates correct face shapes in line with the game audio. which makes a far more believable and realistic result. For the 2018 game, we created a brand new cinematics department who work exclusively on the game's cinematic spaces. So that's everything from the brand new R&D room that we have, to the agent's office, to the interview spaces that we've built for the Meet the Press work. Having a team dedicated to this has allowed us to spend a lot more time and get much higher quality results. F1's a glamorous sport. There's a lot of build-up to the races. There's a lot of things on the periphery of the sport that make it such a huge occasion. So we've recaptured some of that with things like fast jets flying over the track before races. Everything to try and make you feel a bit more immersed in the experience as a viewer and as a player. The F1 2018 season has had a huge visual rebrand. It's got an exciting, fresh new look, and we'll be looking to bring that into the game as much as we possibly can this year and going forward into 2019 and beyond. Our aim this year was to create as big a visual leap forward as we possibly could. We made improvements to the sky system, the clouds, the atmospherics, or game lighting as a whole. We have much more authentic track materials. We've added a lot more detail to armcos, to rumbles, to fences. Everything's about creating a far more authentic and realistic experience. And when you see this side by side against the 2017 game, I think you'll see a huge leap forward.
I'm Brad Porter, lead audio designer on F1 2018. Every year we update our engine bundles, we make them as realistic as possible. We try and make them as close to broadcast as possible, which is what a lot of fans ask for. We've been over to tracks such as Abu Dhabi, Barcelona and Paul Ricard over the last year, working directly with F1 teams, going into the garages with them on test sessions, miking up the cars on board with our new radio gear, and then we're standing at the side of the track for externals. We're in the garages recording ambisonics, we're out in the paddock, we're out in the pit lane. We've overhauled the distance tones this year, and we're no longer just filtering out the bundles anymore, we're actually getting authentic sounds of F1 cars at distance and blending between the onboard and the external shots, and it's created a far more believable broadcast sound. We've overhauled the reverb system this year, so we're now using positional reverb. It actually sits in the world where it's supposed to be now instead of being 2D. We've also overhauled the reflection system now, so on a subconscious level it gives a player an indication of how close to barriers or other objects they are. All the music is now mixed and mastered in surround. We wanted the music to feed into the expensive nature and tech of the world. So you'll notice one organic soundtrack throughout the front end. The sub-menus all follow one coherent theme, but there's slight differences between each menu, so we're trying to feed in with things like time trial. You'll hear little bits of ticking in the music. When you go into the options menu, we drop everything down and just have a subtle piano so you can concentrate on moving your settings around. From an audio point of view, the game is now sounding far more believable and far more authentic.